The rain came down hard on Interstate 40 outside of Amarillo, Texas, the kind of rain that made you feel like God himself was trying to wash the earth clean of something terrible. Daniel Mercer gripped the steering wheel of his rusted 2009 Ford F-150 and stared at the road ahead. The wipers screamed back and forth across the windshield, barely keeping up. On the passenger seat sat a crumpled eviction notice, a final disconnection bill from the electric company, and a letter from his ex-wife Sandra, informing him that she was moving their 12-year-old daughter, Lily, to Phoenix without him. He had nowhere to go. 3 months ago, Daniel had been a construction foreman in Nashville, Tennessee. He had a modest house on Clover Lane, a good truck, a daughter who called him Daddy, even at 12 years old, and a savings account with enough to last 2 years if things went wrong. Then things went wrong. His business partner, a man named Gary Fletcher, had emptied their joint, company account, every single dollar, and disappeared to somewhere nobody could find him. $47,000, gone in a single Thursday morning while Daniel was pouring concrete on a job site in Brentwood. Daniel lost the contracts, lost the employees, lost the house, lost his marriage, which had already been hanging by a thread. And now he was driving west on a rainy Tuesday night with $214 in his wallet, a half-tank of gas, and a heart so heavy it felt like it was made of stone. He hadn't prayed in 6 months. He used to pray every morning. His mother, Ruth Mercer, a small woman with silver hair and calloused hands from years of gardening in Knoxville, had raised him on prayer. She used to say, "Daniel, prayer is not a spare tire you pull out when everything goes flat. It's the steering wheel." But the steering wheel had felt useless lately. He had prayed when Gary stole from him. He had prayed when Sandra filed for divorce. He had prayed the night Lily hugged him goodbye outside the Nashville airport and cried into his shoulder. God had been silent for every single one of those prayers. So Daniel had stopped asking. He nearly missed the exit. A green sign appeared through the curtain of rain, Redemption Springs. Exit 143, 2 miles. He had never heard of Redemption Springs. It wasn't on his GPS. He didn't know why his hands turned the wheel. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the name. Maybe it was something else entirely. He took the exit. Redemption Springs turned out to be a small town that looked like it had been forgotten by time sometime around 1987. Street had a hardware store, a pharmacy, a small white church with a broken sign out front, and a diner called Martha's Place. The lights inside? Martha's Place glowed warm and yellow through the rain-streaked window. Daniel parked and ran inside, his jacket soaked through before he even reached the door. The diner smelled like coffee and bacon grease and something else. Something he couldn't name right away. Something that reminded him of Sunday mornings as a boy. A woman behind the counter looked up. She was perhaps 60 with deep brown eyes, gray locks pulled back with a red ribbon, and the kind of smile that looked like it had survived. A great deal of pain and come out, the other side still genuine. Her name tag read, Martha. "Honey, you look like you've been through a war," she said. "Just the rain," Daniel said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "Mm-hmm." She set a coffee mug in front of him before he even asked. "You eaten today?" He started to say yes. He said no instead. She disappeared into the kitchen without another word, and within 5 minutes, a plate of scrambled eggs, toast, and bacon appeared in front of him. He stared at it for a moment. His eyes burned. "You don't have to pay for that," Martha said. "Not tonight." He looked up. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," she said, refilling his coffee. "I know a man who's lost when I see one. I've been lost myself." Daniel ate slowly. The diner was almost empty, just an old man in the corner reading a newspaper and a teenage boy mopping the floor near the back. The rain drummed against the windows. "You passing through?" Martha asked. "I don't know where I'm going," Daniel said. It came out more honest than he intended. Martha leaned on the counter. She looked at him carefully. "You a praying man?" He almost laughed. "Used to be." What happened? He didn't know why he told her. Maybe because she was a stranger. Maybe because he was too tired to carry it alone anymore. He told her about Gary, about Sandra, about Lily, about the $47,000, and the eviction notice on the passenger seat, and the way God had seemed to turn his back and walk away without leaving a note. Martha listened. She didn't interrupt once. When he was done, the diner was quiet except for the rain. "Can I tell you something?" she finally said. "Go ahead." "I lost my son," she said. Marcus, he was 23. Drunk driver hit him on Highway 60 just outside of Lubbock. 7 years ago this March, she paused. Her eyes didn't water, but they held something deep and steady, like a river that had already flooded and found its banks again. I was so angry at God I couldn't walk into a church for 2 years. I thought he had abandoned me. I thought maybe he wasn't even real. Maybe everything I'd ever believed was just a fairy tale for people who couldn't face how cruel the world was. Daniel was quiet. You know what changed me? She asked. He shook his head. Psalm 139, she said simply. Verse 7. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? I was reading it one night just to spite God, honestly. Just to argue with it. And it hit me. If I can't flee from him, then he didn't leave. He was there. He was there when Marcus died. He was there when I screamed at the ceiling at 2 a.m. He was there in my anger. He never left. I had just stopped seeing him. Daniel stared into his coffee cup. The truth that restored my faith, Martha continued, was not that God would stop the pain. It was that he was in the pain with me. He never promised us an easy road, Daniel. He promised he'd walk it with us. The old man in the corner folded his newspaper. Daniel hadn't paid much attention to him. White hair, flannel shirt, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of man you'd see in any small-town diner in America. But now the man stood up, tucked his newspaper under his arm, and walked slowly to the counter. He sat down 2 stools from Daniel. Forgive me, he said. His voice was low and warm like a fireplace. I wasn't trying to listen. But in a diner this small, it's hard not to. It's all right, Daniel said. My name is Pastor Eugene Hall, the man said. I've been the pastor at that little church across the street for 31 years. Daniel glanced through the window at the white church with its broken sign. The sign's been broken since last spring, Eugene said, following his gaze. Haven't had the money to fix it. But the door's still open every morning at 6. He smiled quietly. God doesn't need a sign. He ordered a decaf coffee from Martha and wrapped both hands around the mug when she brought it. You know what I find interesting about your story? Eugene said. The part about Gary. Daniel stiffened slightly. What about it? Joseph, Eugene said. Daniel blinked. The Bible? Genesis 37 through 50, Eugene said. Joseph's brothers, his own flesh and blood, sold him into slavery for 20 pieces of silver. Betrayal doesn't get much worse than that. Then he was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and thrown in prison for years for something he didn't do. Years, Daniel. Can you imagine? Praying every morning in a prison. Sell for something he didn't deserve. Eugene paused. Do you know what the scripture says about that period? Daniel shook his head. Genesis 39:21. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love. Eugene set down his mug. Not the Lord rescued Joseph from prison. Not the Lord made everything comfortable. The Lord was with him, right there in the darkness of that cell. That was the truth. The presence of God in the worst place you can imagine. Daniel felt something move in his chest. Not a large thing. Small like a crack forming in a wall. And here's the part that will really get you, Eugene continued. At the end of the story, after everything, after the betrayal, the slavery, the false accusations, the prison, Joseph stands in front of his brothers who destroyed his life. And he says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. Genesis 50:20. Eugene looked at Daniel steadily. He didn't say it didn't hurt. He didn't say it wasn't real. He said God had been working in it, through it, the whole time. Even when Joseph couldn't see it. Even when every prayer seemed to bounce off the ceiling. The rain outside had softened. It was still falling, but gently now. Daniel felt his throat tighten. I haven't talked to my daughter in 3 weeks, he said. It came out like a confession. I don't call because I don't know what to say. I don't know how to tell her that her father has nothing, that everything fell apart. Call her, Martha said from the other end of the counter without looking up from. Wiping the surface. She deserves better than... She deserves her father, Martha said firmly, now looking directly at him. Not a successful father, not a wealthy father, not a father who has all the answers. Just her father. That little girl doesn't need your money, Daniel. She needs you. He pressed his lips together hard. You know what the father did in the story of the prodigal son? Eugene said quietly. Luke 15:20. While he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. That father didn't wait until the son got his life together. He didn't wait for explanations or resumes or bank statements. He ran, while the son was still a mess. Still a long way off? Eugene's voice was barely above a whisper now. You think God is any different with you? It happened without warning. Daniel Mercer, a 41-year-old man who hadn't cried in front of another person since his father's funeral 12 years ago, put his face in his hands at a diner counter in Redemption Springs, Texas, and wept. Not politely, not quietly. He wept the way a person weeps when they've been holding something for so long that the holding itself becomes more painful than the breaking. His shoulders shook. His breath came in ragged pieces. 6 months of grief, of anger, of confusion, of silence, all of it poured out onto that diner counter while the rain fell soft outside and Martha refilled his coffee without a word, and Pastor Eugene Hall sat 2 stools away and did not try to stop it or speed it up or fix it. He just stayed. That was the thing Daniel would remember for the rest of his life. Not what was said. Not the scripture. Not even the eggs and the bacon and the warmth of the diner. What he would remember was that Eugene Hall and Martha, 2 strangers in a forgotten Texas town, simply stayed. They sat with him in it. They didn't flinch. They didn't check their phones. They didn't offer empty platitudes or tell him it would all be fine. They stayed the way God stays. When the weeping finally passed, Daniel felt hollow and clean at the same time, the way a room feels after all the old furniture has been cleared out and the windows have been thrown open. He wiped his face with a diner napkin. He was embarrassed. He started to apologize. Don't you dare, Martha said. He almost smiled. Eugene was quiet for a moment. Then he said, there's a verse I want you to hold on to. Isaiah 43:1. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. He let it sit. God knew your name before you were born, Daniel. He knew this night was coming. He knew the betrayal, the loss, the rain on Interstate 40, this diner. He called you by name. Not by your success, not by your bank account, by your name, and he said, you are mine. Eugene looked at him gently. You can't be lost if the one who made you knows exactly where you are. Daniel stared at the counter for a long time. Then he pulled his phone from his pocket. He scrolled to the contact labeled Lily, my girl, with the small heart emoji she had put there herself 2 Christmases ago. His thumb hovered over the call button. It's almost 10 o'clock, he said. She might be asleep. Call her anyway, Martha said. Mothers understand. He pressed call. It rang twice. Daddy? Her voice. 12 years old and worried and wide awake at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. And the sound of it hit Daniel Mercer like sunlight through a window that had been painted shut for years. Hey, baby, he managed. Daddy, where are you? Mom said you were driving. Are you okay? I've been... Her voice cracked slightly. I've been worried. I'm okay, he said. And for the first time in 6 months, some part of him meant it. I'm in a little town in Texas called Redemption Springs. Sitting in a diner, talking to some very good people. Redemption Springs, she repeated. He could hear her smiling through the phone. That sounds like something from a movie. Yeah, he said. It kind of does. Daddy? Her voice went small and serious the way it did when she had something important to say. I don't care about the house or any of that stuff. I just want you to be okay. That's all I ever wanted. He pressed his fist against his mouth for a moment. I know, sweetheart, he said. I know. I'm going to be okay. I promise you. I'm going to be okay. He slept in the parking lot of the diner that night, reclined in the driver's seat of his truck, with his jacket pulled over him. Martha had offered to let him sleep in the back storeroom, but he declined. He wanted to be under the open sky, even if he couldn't see it through the roof of his truck. He prayed for the first time in 6 months. It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't the prayer of a man who had everything figured out. It was the prayer of a man at the absolute bottom of himself, with nothing to offer except his own broken honesty. God, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how any of this gets fixed. I'm angry and I'm scared and I'm tired, but I'm still here. And if you're still here too, if what Martha and Eugene said is true, then I'm asking you to show me, not because I deserve it, just because I need it. And because you said you called me by name. So here I am. It's me, Daniel. He fell asleep before he said amen. He woke at 6 in the morning to pale gold light slanting across the Texas sky. The storm had passed entirely. The world smelled like wet earth and something new. Across the street, the doors of the little white church were open. He sat in the truck for a while, watching. A few people went in. An older woman in a blue coat, a young couple with a baby, a teenager on a bicycle who leaned it against the church wall and walked in like it was the most natural thing in the world. Daniel got out of the truck. He crossed Main Street. He walked up the 3 wooden steps. He stopped in the doorway. The inside of the church was small and simple. Wooden pews, plain white walls, a large wooden cross at the front, and morning light coming through clear glass windows that turned it all gold. Pastor Eugene Hall stood at the front, not preaching, just quietly arranging his Bible on the pulpit. He looked up and saw Daniel. He didn't say anything remarkable. He didn't make a ceremony of it. He just smiled the quiet smile of a man who had seen this before, the moment a lost person steps back through the door. And he said simply, "Good morning, Daniel. Come on in." The postcard sat on the refrigerator of a small apartment in Austin, Texas, held up by a magnet shaped like the state of Tennessee. The apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, 3rd floor, a small balcony, where Daniel drank his coffee each morning. Before his shift at the construction company where he'd been hired as a crew supervisor 3 months ago. It wasn't Nashville. It wasn't the house on Clover Lane. But it was his. And it was honest. And it was enough. The postcard was from Martha. On the front was a photograph of a wide Texas sky. On the back, in her neat handwriting, it said, "The sign on the church got fixed last month. It reads, 'You are not lost. God knows your name.' Pastor Eugene says it was your idea. Lily sounds like a wonderful girl from everything you've told me. Come back and see us sometime." Martha! Every other weekend, Lily came to stay. She slept in the 2nd bedroom, which Daniel had painted her favorite color, a deep, warm teal, and filled with bookshelves because she was a reader, like her grandmother Ruth. On Friday evenings when she arrived, she would drop her overnight bag inside the door and walk straight to the balcony, and they would stand together and look out at the Austin skyline, while it turned orange and pink in the sunset. He had not yet recovered everything he lost. Gary Fletcher had been found in Scottsdale, Arizona, and charges had been filed. But the legal process was slow and uncertain, and Daniel had made a decision, not an easy one, to stop letting. Gary Fletcher's choices determined the direction of his own life. He had a long way to go financially. Some nights were still hard. Some mornings he woke with the old weight pressing down on him, before he even opened his eyes. But he prayed every morning now, not because his life was perfect, not because all the problems had been solved, not because God had shown up like a rescue helicopter and airlifted him out of his troubles, but because he had learned, in a diner in Redemption Springs, Texas, on a rainy Tuesday night, the biblical truth that had restored his faith. You cannot be lost when the God who created you knows your name and calls it. The storm does not mean he is gone. The prison cell does not mean he abandoned you. The betrayal, the divorce, the empty bank account, the broken sign, none of it means what the enemy wants you to think it means. It means you are in the middle of the story, not the end of it. Joseph couldn't see the palace from the prison. The prodigal son couldn't see his father running from the far country. And Daniel Mercer couldn't see any of this from Interstate 40 in the rain. But God could. God always could. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. Isaiah 43:1. If you are watching this in the dark place, if you are on your own version of Interstate 40 tonight, driving with nowhere to go and a heart full of things you don't know how to carry, know this. You are not lost. He knows your name. He is already running toward you.